Hello, Culture Matters
Yo.
Podcast. Yeah, I'm ready to introduce you to our guest. We have maracas. Before I do that, here's a quote I think that's fitting for this episode. Quote, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. My dear friend, Graham Lichtner is back. Episode 114, season 10. Go listen to that now and come back, or maybe after this, but listen to that. We've been friends for years, and what a perfect person to pick for this, or this quote for this person. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Easiest way for me to describe you, my friend, is when you walk in a room, you change the media, and it's to the betterment of others. So I want to tell you that.
Thank you,
to you, but also kind of that's like my introduction. Graham is a mentor, a coach for sure, and an advisor to many people about a hell of a lot more than just business and how to be as people. I mean, that's like my layperson explanation. MBS, mind, body, spirit, and so much more. I got a million leaders to legends too. I like that shirt, by the way.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, big. This is the original. I got many versions now, but it's
Maybe we can unpack a bit that distinction between a leader and a legend. Maybe that's somewhere to start. How are we? Yeah, what's in your mind the distinction between a leader and a legend? And I ask because we hear so many of the books that I listen to and so on talk about being a leader.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've upped the ante. So I'd like to understand that.
Well, first, man, thanks so much for the introduction. It feels really good to hear that, and I really appreciate it. And friends for a while. I have your letter you wrote me here, and a great picture of us on my my wall of legends, which I am really fired up about.
Oh, man, that's cool as hell.
Yeah, I'll show you for sure.
I would love to see that.
Right there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I work a lot of times right underneath it. Like I'll just sit there when I don't feel.
You're a true culture man. God, there's so many. Thank you.
You're welcome, brother. Yeah. Thank you. It's so cool. It's very inspiring. Like, and I feel just when I'm working or when I'm just sitting here and I look up at just so many people who have had an impression on me, or moments in my life that have like compelled me to something more, something greater, or unlocked something new, or inspired some new creativity. It's just like, I'm just so thankful for that and all the people that have made my life possible, and supported and collaborated with me. So yeah, dude, thank you very much. Leader and legend. This is something that I've been giving a lot of thought, as far as like how to simply articulate it. And I think, like many things, a word has obviously so many definitions depending on the perception of the person hearing it. And a lot of the perceptions that people have, I feel like, are and can be, if one does not spend time unpacking what it means to them, it can become very dogmatic. And I personally feel like leadership in general can be extremely dogmatic. I mean, I've read dozens of books, and a lot of them are literally saying all the same, like tactically how to do it. And for me, I feel like it can be a lot more. And I feel like for the men that I have had the pleasure, and the women I have had the pleasure and honor of working with and coaching, what I continuously find is a lot of times the leadership styles that they've downloaded or learned don't actually fit who they are. And so it's like they become constricted by it, and they aren't able to express fluidly, freely. They aren't able to access the inspiration that will unlock an entirely new level, or a new idea, or have them innovate a new way of doing things. So to me, leaders to legends is the expression of a person in the most authentic, raw, and honest form that is also in alignment with their values, mentally, physically, spiritually, the mind and the heart in communication succinctly, and then the outward expression of that in just incredible creative experiences, whether that in business, personally, just in general, in that vicinity. So I feel like there's a lot, there's a huge difference. And I see with a lot of leaders, like I said, they end up, from what I've seen and working with in my practice, a lot of times it can become the badge of leadership can become a straitjacket for them to stop creative expression of who they are, like I said, which could actually move things, get them closer to what they desire, fulfill their vision in a new way. And so, yeah, that's like the main reason that I created Leaders Legends is I wanted people to unlock their own unique way of sharing their specific talent, gift, expertise, ability in a format that complements how they are, and thus it can become more sustainable for them energetically, and they have more freedom to roam. And my hope is that that inspires a lot of other people to look in the mirror, just a little, the cockeyed look. People are like, oh, that's making sense now. And start to express themselves a little bit differently, and not feel so like this is the only way to do it. This is exactly what this thing is. These are thousands of case studies of just this one. It could be a lot more open than that. And that's my thing. Yeah.
They make me think of the Winston Churchill said, we build the houses we live in, and then they shape us. I'm paraphrasing, like we shape the houses we live in, and then they shape us. Do you think there's a dynamic there when someone gets that? I wrote this down. The badge of leadership stops expression. So like someone gets the title now,
yeah,
and now they stop being whatever it was that got them the title. Is that what you're fixating on, this contradiction that happens?
I think that it can, not always. Some people I've noticed still like are able to just move past that or not take all of that on. But what I found also is that a lot of those leaders who are naturally more empathetic, and I would call more feeling centered, that really becomes an issue for them, because now they're like, they feel so connected or so, and potentially at times obligated to do things a certain way in order to, and that's a slippery slope where I think a lot of people get off of they get away from what got them there, and thus joy of creation is replaced by the agony of constriction, something like that. It's just crazy, but
well, I'd like to understand
constriction. Yeah, I need that one's good. I'll come back to that. Yeah,
someone's on the other side of this now in a view of themselves and whatever they're doing of less constriction. What's it like to be a part of that journey with someone?
Oh man, it's freeing for me. I get asked this question a lot, which is so fun for me. It's like my favorite question people ask me. It's like, so what does a life coach do? I'm like, it depends, man. You know what I mean? It's such a hilarious thing to go into. I'm at the basketball court and the guys are like, so, and it goes from us playing basketball to then this like,
wow,
this moment of connection that I really enjoy having with people, where they're like genuinely curious and having to think what it would be like to be in the situation that I'm describing, or even move them into that space. But to come back to your question, it's freeing for me. It's freeing for me because the level of presence that is required the level of presence that I embrace in a moment of curiosity and emotional confusion and emotional vagueness is just so like inspiring in a like, wow, this is like there's something's happening here. There's more happening. Like,
wow.
The emotional tectonic plates of a human are shifting. There's a little volcano. There's you know what I mean? Wow, this is epic. Thank you for inspiring this. The emotional tectonic plates. Yeah, there's it's the word.
You're witnessing that constantly.
Yeah, it's and I get to be and I'm like also at times the other tectonic plate that's creating the the trench, or creating the mountain, the peak of mountains, or creating, like I said, the volcano. And for whatever reason, I'm blanking on the
geographical.
Yeah, the geographical term. I'm blanking. It'll come back to me later. But it's just so interesting and I think also in that it's also so connecting. Like I feel like I really get to know people as much as I'm willing to get to know myself, which can be really, really neat to just feel really connected to another person and know things about them that they've been wanting to share or they've never shared before, and just getting to be in the presence of that type of discovery, because it's really just this discovery. It's like a new world, a new treasure that, like.
What are some of the misnomers of the term life coach that you can correct here? I would argue that I believe you're the first person that's ever on the show proudly articulated himself as such. And I'm not only, stirred by that in a personally, like I really appreciate that personally. So now I'm like, wow, okay. What are some of the misnomers? And now I'm asking that because I've struggled with when people have labeled me as such.
Yeah.
I've not been able to, I wouldn't consider myself as that, but maybe that's because I'm a coward. So I'd like to know what I haven't really asked a clear question. Thanks for coming back to the culture.
Yeah, let's go. We're back in the lab.
First one's misnomers. Like common misconceptions of what that
The number one
person is in
the number one common so two things. First thing, I have experimented with so many different types of titles, but in the end, I find that most of them fall upon deaf ears. So it's just really not. And my goal is to connect with the person in front of me. So I don't mind letting them, like a lot of my clients call me something different than life coach. But I feel like when I introduce myself to someone who doesn't know me, doesn't know anything about me, I'm like, I'm a life coach. And then the first thing they go, oh, so you give people advice? And I'm like, no, that's not what I do.
That's so fascinating.
I don't give people advice all day. So I think a lot of people think that my job is to, give people advice on what they should do with their life. And like the conversation as we move forward in this conversation, we look back on just like, 3 minutes ago, so much of my excitement and my joy and the way I feel about the experience is it's just an epic discovery. It's a voyage. It's a voyage inward. And so that we can come back with, the riches from the Indies, you know what I mean? The Spice Island stuff, so.
Yeah.
So that to me, I think is a common.
Do you think our cultures confuse what a coach actually is, like the term coach?
Well, yeah, because I
think
think
actually unravels itself.
It's used in so many. I mean, like I think the most, like to me at least, what I see, like people think coach. When I say I'm a coach, if I don't say anything else, Jay, I just say I'm a coach. They go, oh, like for football, like what team do you coach? I'm like, no, not that kind of coach. Which is like, I giggle, I do that exact thing. I'm like, no, not.
Yeah.
Yes and no, like no, but mostly no. I don't think I can handle the stress of that. That's like, one thing I've been doing this year is watching a lot of great, everyone's perception of them is great, the greats, coaches in football, like soccer. I've gotten like obsessed, as a culture guy. I sit there and read freaking Instagram comments and YouTube comments of English Premier League football pages all day because I'm just like, what the hell are these people talking about? I gotta know, like, what are you thinking over there? This is, so I've been watching some behind the scenes documentaries of some of the great football coaches, and man, like that's so much, there's so much pressure on them, and with so little time to implement their culture. As I bring this back to me in that experience I was talking about, a lot of people, when I say, hey, I'm a coach, their assumption is that I'm like a sports coach, right? So, and then, I'm like, oh no, I'm a life coach. Okay, well, so you give people advice. I'm like, no. So like, what do you do? And usually then I will start to, depending on the conversation that we've already been having, and this happens in the sauna all the time for whatever reason. I guess it's a compact place where I can just ask questions and they're not like generally elsewhere. They're usually pretty present.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
It's a great place. Yeah, so it's fun, for me at least, to just ask questions. How was your workout? And that turns into like, all of a sudden they're leaving feeling good because we're having a conversation that actually has depth, which is nice. but yeah, I think that they ask like, okay, life coach, advisor. I'm like, no, no, no. So what do you do? And I'll try and find an example or some way to metaphorically share an experience that a client has had recently that they might relate to.
Mm.
And that usually spurs some, okay, that makes sense. Like the other day, I had a conversation with a guy and he's in construction. And I was like, yeah, so a lot of he's like, well, what do you do? I'm like, well, so a lot of the work is like, if you ever worked so much as an entrepreneur, I know you can relate to this. You work so much, you come home and your house is a mess. He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So what we do is we start with the emotional mess that's going on from overworking or from not putting your attention on the things at home internally that matter to you, right? And then once that's cleaned up, we go to the basement and we realize there's things from much, much longer ago that have compiled. And then we really start to reorganize the internal home. He's like, oh, like, does that make sense? He's like, yeah. I'm like, does that make sense? He's like, yeah, no, it does. I'm like, cool. That's a good awareness as to how I work with people and my interaction and experience with them. And I asked him 3 times, and it seemed like he was more aware than he'd ever been before, which was really great because it was cool for him to see me. Like that felt great. I was like, wow, that's really great, Graham. That's awesome. That's back to playing basketball, but that moment, those like extra 10 seconds there where there was a deeper connection than ever before. I just feel like that makes me feel really connected, and that feels like really loving and loved, and it brings me closer to every person that I meet who we have those types of experiences with, whether or not I work with them more in depth. Just that right there is a new understanding for both him and me.
You think this profession chooses us?
In here says yes. I don't know. Nothing's up here. It's just here. It just says yes. It seems like it seems like the curiosity I have towards people is just so monumental that just can't like I'm interested in people like someone is interested in rockets.
Wow.
I can't shake it. Like I just everywhere I go, I'm like I'm just observing because I just, it's just fascinating. Humans are just, the whole thing is just I gotta read my journal. Like I gotta know, like, okay, I'm writing this and that. I'm reading the comments, talking to people, having conversations. I'm in the sauna. It's for me, but also I get to learn. So it's incredible. Yeah, I think that it does. With that said, obviously, just because I might have predisposition to curiosity in something and potentially talent in the discovery of my talent in the excavation of self and helping others do it. Like with a little chisel and doesn't mean it doesn't require work still and extra learning and me going off the beaten path to find information and connect seemingly incoherent thought patterns or ideas together to create something new or see something in a new way or resubmerge something that's been like pushed to the side that people don't think is wrong. So I think somewhere in all there is a combination of like, yes, I think there's some innate things, but also there also needs to be some like real inspired drive and natural and ability to learn, how to put in work, be consistent, show up daily to the task at hand, and also combine that with the natural joy and creativity of excavation of self.
What's it like to have people that rely on your ear and your word when it's relevant? Like, what's that like as a person?
Something's coming. Hold on. It just makes sense and it feels right for me. It feels right. It feels like a math equation. 1 equals 1, 0 equals. It just feels right. That feels really right. Nothing else. Just, yep. everything else that comes along with that, like in the end, the equation just comes down to these, like that feels really, really right. And I feel like that's the position that I'm in is exactly the position that fuels me and excites me and ignites me and highlights that which I'm not and show that which I am. But it definitely highlights that which I'm not, which I find, that's cool those words came, but like it definitely does. It's powerful.
How important to you is it to follow your intuition, or what, like listening to that voice, however you describe that voice? Like 1 low, 10 high, like where do you fall?
Infinity.
All right, so then my next question is, was there a time where it was below 10 or 8?
There was a time that there was never a time that it wasn't intensely obvious, but there was a time where I was, my fear was so much greater than my courage.
Wow, yeah?
Yeah, for sure, for a very long time. And I think the culture that I was bought into at the time, and this is like, early teens and then up like middle school, high school, and like parts of an early college, I was just so bought into culture, our culture, American culture, that I just didn't think it was relevant. Like it just didn't even make sense. It wasn't worth listening to because I didn't think it was going to give me that which I desired. Maybe I
desire
popularity. I wanted to be seen. I wanted people to know me. I wanted people to like me. I wanted people to envy me. Came just now. I wanted people to like look at me and Graham, yeah. Oh, he's the best. He's the center. I really wanted those things.
Wow.
That other voice just slowly started to quiet. My intuition I didn't feel like that was relevant. I also feel the further that I get away from the school system, the more I realize that I had no time for it as well. There was no time for intuition. There was schoolwork, homework, sports, and the social and political flow of school. The last thing I was like thinking was like, I wonder what Gandhi thought about X, Y, and Z. I wasn't picking up those types of books. I had required reading that I didn't even want to do. So the last thing I was going to do is be curious about what? Everything, my whole past in front of me. They're on the announcements every morning. Make sure if you haven't already, apply to your colleges. It's like, yes, yes, ma'am. Let me do all those things.
Have you found a deep synergy or a similar experience with people that have been coming to the group gatherings? And
similar in what way?
like a non-conformity or an
yes,
like an apathy?
Yeah.
Like
well, no. Here we go. It comes back to your quote. Can you re-say your quote one more time to make sure?
Yeah. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
100%. So a lot of these, this is actually a perfect quote. The first half of it is where a lot of them start. They need to get lost to be found. They know they're lost, but they haven't figured out what that being service of others is yet.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like half the equation is there, and the other half is the second half of the work that I usually do with them, which is really exciting, and that's so much discovery and voyaging around and internally and also in the external world as well. But I feel like a lot of them come and they are lost. They have achieved everything that they wanted, or they've achieved what they thought they wanted, and now realizing that the things that they thought they wanted that they did want are hollow, way more hollow than they thought. And they're like, okay, like and the way I always view it is like, I think of the Last Supper, the painting, and they're there, but their table is empty. There's food, but it's just them. It's like, I did all these things, but I don't have anyone that I'm connected to enough that I really feel we could sit at this table and really enjoy it that way. I don't think I could enjoy it at the level that I desire and want to. So I feel like in so many ways, like a lot of what, the second half of that is figuring out, many other versions and forms of oneself that I would want to sit at the table with me. And once I feel comfortable with that, then those seats start filling with people who have similar values or have compliments or things to add. And in the service together of, insert whatever that is, the Last Supper it becomes like the supper, the consistent supper, the daily supper, the life supper, just every day. I'm just getting great experiences. I'm having an incredible time learning new things. I feel I'm in my lane. I feel connected. I feel right. I feel like that equation energetically is equal. Like I feel what I'm giving out, I'm receiving, and that feels amazing. And then I have extra to give because I want to. There's just such a natural flow in and out. Just yeah. So yeah, that makes sense.
Podcast.
Amazing.
What's it called?
Leaders of Legends podcast.
That's fitting.
Yeah, right. It's amazing. Such a joy.
When did you start it? What's it been like?
So my girlfriend inspired it. So this is actually really great. The first podcast I made, I was like, hey, I want to meet a lot of people and I want to do a lot of interviews. Like, let me just interview people. And so I interviewed a lot of people, and that was an amazing experience. But I felt like when I was thinking about this podcast, I was like, I haven't really given myself full permission just to go in on me, like me be the session, me be the focal point, me be the one that's creating these episodes from scratch, from things that I believe, things that I see, things that I think are valuable for others. And so the idea coming into this was that I really just wanted to share what was on my mind, on my heart, some of the work I was doing with clients, my practice, some of the things that I've been working on. I've also started 2 books, which I'm excited to share with you.
We should talk about it.
Yeah, we will. So it's like this last 8 weeks has been like a creative, combustive, life transition for me. I feel like there were many things that I had been wanting to birth. And in the last 8 weeks, boom, 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 I feel like I had 4 babies, you know what I mean?
Congratulations.
I got a name all.
That's a big deal. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been cool. So the podcast, I got on and I was like, I don't have necessarily a full agenda for each episode, but I want to do a combination of sharing things that I think are valuable and useful and interviewing people who I think are really great, who really embody that leaders to legend flow. I'm sharing myself in my own unique way. I have my own vision, my own thing that I'm doing. I'm taking leadership principles and then I'm making them my own and I'm adding to them. I'm making them better. And so the podcast episode, the first one that came out, I just was like, wow. I just went in for 30 minutes, one take. It ended up being half of it was 30 to 40% of it was a conversation that led into an actual exercise that I did with everyone right on the show. Really? So I have to pull up their journals. I'm like, hey, these are, redefining success. These are some questions to ask yourself. Take some time, take some space. And over the course of 30 minutes, if you choose, you have a written, redefined vision of what success is to you, which in my opinion, can really alter the course of someone's life and in a moment, shake the psychological structures that have been holding people in place of action patterns that are not bringing them more of what they want. They're bringing them partially what they want, but with a really bitter aftertaste. So, since then, I've just had really cool, inspired moments where I'll come up with an idea. And like I said, in 25 to 35 minutes, I'll share it. And episodes have been coming out so fluidly. And I feel like it's honestly my best medium, one of mine, top ones. I feel like, the amount of the things that I've learned, the practice the time I've put into practice, learning to communicate, and the moment of inspiration led to my best work. So I feel like this is my best work yet. It's been really powerful. My girlfriend inspired me. She's like, you should really think about this. You're a great speaker. You have so many ideas. This would be an amazing opportunity for you to share. And I just crossed over 100 downloads. I released it every 2 weeks ago. And I was so excited. I was like, this is so cool. Wow, how cool is that? I just, the 2 thumbs up for me. I just feel good about that. It's cool.
Why do you think it makes sense to feel good about that? This is a serious question, by the way, because
If someone downloaded it, they have the intention of listening and they want to build a relationship with me. And that feels amazing. Like, how cool is that? Or they want to continue to build a relationship with me. And that just feels connected. Like, I like being connected with people. It's fun. It's a good time. And from that, so many new things are possible. And it just feels incredible. So, like, each download, I know that I'm getting to know someone and they're getting to know me a little bit more. And I think it's just beautiful, incredible.
sometimes I think like, who's listening to this?
Yeah.
Now, I say that with Jenna's way more on the side of knowing who's listening. It's not a conversation I've had really, like as far as the statistics and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because I obviously, like, I'm talking to you. Like, for me, I'm really, if I'm having a guest and I'm not talking to myself, which I definitely like to, I'll share some vulnerabilities there. How I believe I failed and have continued to fail talking to myself on this medium. So I should seek your counsel on that. But like, yeah, like where are they?
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm thinking like, where are these? I guess I feel like I'm talking to aliens sometimes.
Oh,
If
it's
you're listening
amazing.
to this now, I may make it sound like no one listens. I know we have listeners.
Oh, for sure. No,
I believe I've done a poor job of creating maybe a conversation between them. And so I'm thinking, if in the moment I'm thinking, talking to you, I'm like, it's almost like how we send messages out to space. Like, when are the aliens going to respond?
literally.
And I'm just laughing now. I'm thinking about, like, so if you're listening to this Culture Matters podcast, maybe send me a message on Instagram and say, hey, I listened, or send Graham a message on, what's your Instagram?
Amazing. Graham.Lichtner.
Yeah, Lichtner, right?
GRAHAM. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your first. Yeah, I knew that's your first. Yeah, send Graham a message.
People say GRAM all the time. They always that's my name. I don't want to get into that conversation about people who don't know how to spell, because that's like, I think that's really
good. Are you?
I am a good speller. I'm a very good speller.
Wow, good for you.
But there's levels, sometimes I come across a word. I'm like, what the spell this thing, man? I don't want to cheat either.
Yeah. No,
I'm not looking this up. I'm taking a break. Hold on one second. I'm like, how do I spell? Like, a word that trips me up a lot is annihilate.
Annihilate.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an H in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's annihilate. Like, it's just, it's so great. I'm like, wow. Without my little freaking dictionary, like, anyway, spelling. Back to
so
messages. People message.
You have listeners,
and they message. It's amazing.
Oh, so then
I just had one today.
You have a real community that you've built before the show.
I had one, yes, which was
I would like to unpack that, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so this woman messaged me, and one of the episodes is called Seasons, and it's about identifying past, current, and future seasons of life. The thing that you just left that you need potentially to let go of, the thing that you are entering or have entered, and what it represents and symbolizes, so that the person listening, and myself too when I do it, can just be a little bit more aware and focused and present with what's in front of them and what's right here, and not so focused on what's past or whatever. And she just like sent me a message and just like told me her answers. And I was like, I wasn't even sure. I'm assuming she had listened. That's what I thought. But just, hey, like, how cool is that? I guess just then there's then we can have a new conversation. Then the conversation between us and our relationship just goes another level, or it just expands a little bit wider, or there's a new structure, and it's just that opens up the conversation for new ideas, new thoughts.
So you've been able to build a real community with your peers. I would say a community of peers, meaning people that have willingly accepted you as a leader. That's my observation. I've been completely incapable of doing that, and only being able to build a community of matriarchs and patriarchs, people that I could be a child essentially like the archetypal child, but that takes the is an externalization of their conscience. What the heck, what can we learn from each other?
I don't know. I'm about to ask you, what do you, can you elaborate on what you just said? Like, how does that, how are they, how is that relationship? I guess just elaborate on it.
Like as a like the let's say the confidential advisor to the person in power, right? That could be that could either be a matriarch or a patriarch.
Right.
They're all like they're old enough to be, they could be my mother, they could be my father, or they could be a grandfather or grandmother. So that's where I've only been able to truly garner an audience of an ear, and not very successfully, by the way, but successfully enough in the sense that once that relationship is formed, they've become, there's depth and there's outcomes. There's okay. So when I look at you and what you've been able to accomplish, you have a tribe in my mind, a community, a people messaging you and sharing their answers. And I believe I could learn something about so that, does that help with the elaboration? Like there's no,
Yeah, for sure.
if I'm self-aware, if I'm honest with myself, I don't have a peer-to-peer community that I've cultivated. I've siloed and isolated myself from that. I've got some matriarchs and patriarchs that myself and now as a firm, we've been able to serve, not complaining about that. I just want to be clear about where I believe I've failed and how I think whatever you represent in your beingness completes where I failed, or yeah, been able and unable to. So then my question around them be like, is it because of how open you are? And but anyway, I'd like your feedback on what I'm saying. Like,
I don't know, because I mean, you seem like, I mean, from what I see in you and my experience with you, you've been very open. So I don't know if that's it. You know what I mean? Like you're very open. I mean, the things you say, like you literally said, I might be a coward, or like people don't say stuff like that. You don't even know how to spell coward, bro. The cowards don't even know how to spell coward. You know what I mean? Like no one says that. No one says that stuff anymore because I think that's like, it might be too much of the drink of truth for people to even really like contemplate what a coward might actually be, and like what being that is, like what that has meant through history. You know what I mean? Like people, but that requires people to read history, which we have conversations all day about spelling and history. Back to you. I wonder if, I guess, or I say this, my question is like, why do you feel like you have chosen that? Like, have you chosen to be in relationships with strictly those types of people, or are you working?
Even if I have, I feel like that choice has been persuaded by the basement. And ultimately, it's not the truest expression of what I am as what I am, who I am, how I am, and what. And yeah, it's not the truest, utility aside, it's not the truest expression of how I'm capable of relating to the world. So the answer to your question is yeah, from a business model standpoint, absolutely. But just it makes me think of Schopenhauer. We can do what we want, we can do what we want, but we can't want what we want.
What do you want?
Well, if I knew that.
Do you want?
No, I can say I would I'm going to say that I'd like to be more open to people. I'd like to be more.
What would that require of you?
No. Yeah, my I've been told that an advisor said, Jay, you're so introspective, you can lose people.
For sure.
So I might be introspecting in the middle of like a conversation or an answer. Yeah, I know. I've just gravitated away from being what I was. I was more open.
Yeah.
I was more humble. And now I'm more arrogant, more closed, more contextual, less honest, less truthful, more strategic,
Mhm.
too strategic.
Mhm.
I'd like to be understood for sure. Now, maybe this is the thing. Maybe I'm so well understood by everyone listening to this, but I've never asked them and they haven't told me that they understand. And I'm just paranoid, which I could easily be because I'm a fairly paranoid person. um, but I like talking to you because we're similar in a lot of ways, yet very different in ways that I think the puzzle pieces fit together.
Yeah, I agree.
Like if I were to look at what Culture Matters is a firm behind the scenes with the matriarchs and patriarchs, it's like there's a part of my inner child that's so safe for them that simultaneously is attracted to them. And then there's a service there, there's deliverables there, there's a help there. But there's something about me that's maybe makes it unsafe or is unsafe to others, my age maybe, or below. Or now at the same time, I don't put myself in the mediums often enough as I had once done, or when I was in the trenches operating a business that I had started many years ago, when I was an operating principal. I was a leader. I led from the front. So there's that, void, right? Going from being in an equity operating as a principal to being external behind the scenes of equities operating as an advisor to principals. So there's a void there. I'm missing something, part of my light, essentially. So yeah, like I've created a lot of distance to accomplish certain goals and outcomes. Like the example, if you have a subordinate that you really want to see shine, one of the best ways to destroy their light is to stand in front of them. Like, or is to stand so close to them that your shadow is greater than theirs, kind of thing. Like I'd be afraid to go to your group because I wouldn't want to overtake everybody and suffocate them and kill them. That would be a true fear. Like
just
a
fear.
social fear.
You don't know if you'd actually do it. You just fear that.
No, that's a paranoia from the shame of my past and the despair that comes with not feeling understood.
You might get surprised.
Well, I'm not going to discount. Yeah, I'm not going to argue against that because that would be an obvious, self-limitation. Or
do you feel like
that's just this? It's like if there's an impulse in me that would shy away from.
Yeah.
And I can feel myself changing over time. Losing a level of the spirit of the child. It's that battle of like responsibility versus, how do I become more responsible without losing the spirit of the child? Maybe that's the big question.
Yeah,
for all of us.
Yeah,
how do I play with my kid when I'm dying on the cross for them to have food? Like, some of these, they're paradoxes.
Yeah.
Or how do I become, how can I, yeah. So anyway, God, these are just thoughts that come to me when I'm talking to you about these things, and really just seeing you for the beauty that you bring into your work and the world, man. I appreciate it.
First of all, thank you for sharing that. And if whoever is listening, I literally don't know how to describe the not only usefulness of this conversation, if you can like see what we're doing, but also the real capacity for people to connect via openness and honesty and genuine care. Like I genuinely want to ask you a question because I know it could potentially help you. And I know you genuinely want to ask me things because it can help me. And both of us also can learn from each other at the same time. Everybody wins. And so everyone wins. It's a round robin of W's, which I think is like, you know, in a culture where everything is wins and losses, it's like hard to fathom only wins. But like to me, there seems like pretty much only wins if I can get myself to understand that's possible. But when you say that, what comes to me is just this concept of seasons. Like there's just a season of my life where I'm going to let my child do whatever it wants, especially if on the last season I was so like disciplinary with it. This season I can lay off the reins a little bit. I view it as a seesaw. You know, it's on an axis. So if we can just slowly let the seesaw come closer and closer to balance, the seamlessness of action will be intuitive. That's what I found for me. And I feel just really good about myself. I don't feel like I feel the least.
I realized
I feel the least amount of guilt I've ever felt in my life for being myself. Yeah, for being myself. That's great.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not there at all. No way. I just realized that I said earlier before we started this, Graham, I want to do a shorter episode because selfishly I want to talk to you after. And then I realized somewhere along in this episode, I'm like, wow, holy shit. If we stop the podcast so that we could have a conversation, then this whole thing's ironic. And it's like, of course it is, because every time I have these episodes, I change, and the likelihood that my guests change, we change without, my belief is that I change without being aware because of the power of the media, because of the power of the crowd, because of the power of the technology. So I decided at some point, well, actually I didn't decide this, I'm not introspecting, but at some point in this conversation, I just let go at some level and decided to just talk to you like I would talk to you if the recording stopped. And now we don't need to end the recording so we can catch up.
100%.
That's basically, and then like that's, I want to make sure I say that out loud for myself and you, like, that's the beauty of this. And I think that's the beauty of what you bring to anyone listening to this that would want to go into whatever community you have or hire you, whatever it is, like that. You bring that, I think, and you've helped me just by being my friend, being here, showing up. Because I'm like, maybe I am more ready than I think I am, and I just did it in a sense by deciding not to end the show and then chat a little bit. Because that I've noticed that happens. These technology, or just, you know, it can split. The whole thing becomes split.
I actually think it actually becomes like the fabric becomes so tightly woven that it no longer was two separate things. Just, and now we're just in the sauce is what I call it. And it's just
That's
real.
what I would like to happen.
Yeah, that's what's happening. It's real.
Every
Conversation is real.
Yeah, with every show, and I'm not there yet as a host, is what I'm saying. But because of our relationship, your gifts, we're there right now.
Yeah, feels good, doesn't it? Feels incredible. How's it feel?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to keep doing it unless it feels better, because ultimately the medium can't just be relegated to another way to gain power. More listeners, or more, you know, people that I don't know that I could potentially do business with, or people that I do know that I could potentially do things with. Like, I have a handful of friends that I would consider, you know, outlierish, unique for our demographic too, what we've either accomplished in life or where we're going. It's contrarian, who have done well, and do well and do unique things. It's like I'm trying to have friends too, not just be this,
Yeah.
because there's that dichotomy of like authority and subservience, right? Like I'm seeking mentors and I have mentees, and that dichotomy. What about my friends? What about my enemies? So you're a friend, and so yeah, I want to be more open to my friends and be able to have friends and be able to have that too. And my goal is to have more of that on the show. Like the Culture Writers podcast, what if it's a culture, a community of people that are in my life more so than just random pundits that come into my life because I have a show. Now I'd like your thoughts on all that or some of it. And then we can end it. And then we can have a personal conversation. No matter what. Yeah, it's like, anyway.
The only thing that's coming to me is how would you be more of a friend to others than than the usual way that you go into a relationship? Like what?
Me?
Like how does that process? Yeah, how does that process work for you? Like, what does it require you to let go of or bring down for you to be like just a lot more like, hey, I'm Jay, like this, like hey, hey.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's there's a paradox of choice. If I'm not with the people that I say I care about, how much do I care about them proportionate to the things that I've chosen to care about? So there's all these responsibilities that are tied to these goals and objectives. So there's people that I consider friends, I care about, that arguably, if I'm not making time for them at some level, they matter less to me than I'm willing to admit or capable of. So that's one way I try to skin that cat alive. I don't know. I've made an intention in 2023 to go to places, like go to events again, sit in the audience, shake people's hand, introduce myself. There's been some joy come from that. There's been a lot of pain too.
Definitely. That's normal.
And like I don't want to get swallowed up by the fruit of all the work, because you start succeeding, and maybe in one medium you're looked at as an authority, and another medium you're maybe not looked at all. And
how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel?
I care about it. Well, similar, which part? I'm sorry. I don't want
the momentary awareness of, over in this group I'm seen as, but in this group I'm seen as, there's.
Well, I believe that I've got to be at peace with not being seen if I'm ever going to see myself at some level, or not lose myself in the crowd, whether I'm in the position of leader or not. Like I fear who I am capable of being. If I continue to do this, if I continue to grow the businesses, I don't trust who I'm going to become. Especially if I don't figure this out now. How am I going to become? What do I really believe?
Right.
Who do I want to be? So that's your question. How does it feel? I sometimes rage, like frustration, less than in the past. I've always been a very opinionated person. It's why I started doing the podcast. I really did need to learn how to listen to people. Meaning just don't interrupt them, and be maybe nicer too. They'd be very cruel. It's not just what one's saying, but how one's saying it. But also, when is it appropriate to omit, and when is it appropriate to be honest? And I still haven't quite figured that out. But partially, it's like, well, I'd just like to be more honest. But
I think that presence trumps them both.
Yeah, how would you go about articulating?
Because if I give myself permission to be present, which means move past my mind and be so open to what you are saying that I don't have preconceived or a narrative I need to go. it allows me, the listener, to ask the next question, make the next statement. And thus this next natural stepness and flow brings about the honesty, brings about the omission in a natural way, right? It's sort of like walking through the jungle and this wind comes and these bamboo things flow just enough to hide the snow leopard from view. Is that an omission by nature? Or is that just a moment where it wanted to shield something from me that maybe would have scared me? Like, I'm safe, I'm not freaking out. And if you do that, you're on a tiger, it comes out. There's a million ways it can be sliced, and thus immediately, even the way I just saw your face move, your mind starts trying to move in that direction. For me, I keep finding that I can just be present enough with you and trust my intuition that I'll ask the right thing. The honesty will still emerge naturally at the correct time, in the correct place, under the correct conditions. Correct meaning the most natural ones. The most natural ones meaning still pain, but also with the potion close enough to experience the pain, and the potion's there, right? Or not, and then continue to suffer. Yeah. So that's how I've experienced it, and it's still a practice. But it doesn't leave me. This is the thing. It doesn't leave me feeling guilty. I don't feel guilty very often. Sometimes I'm like, damn, that was, I'm Graham. So I have, preconceived X, Y, and Z's. But a lot of the time, especially in my practice, it feels okay under the awareness that, it takes time to grow. It takes time to discover. It takes time to let go. All these things are happening, and if I'm trying to manipulate or control how they're always happening, I'm eventually going to develop a mind that is constantly trying to. And by that point, I'm like gripping you instead of being in oneness with you for the experience that's happening presently. I don't care about 3 weeks from now or next year. I don't even care about the original agreement. All I care about is like right here, right now, where are we and what's going on? And from there, those things, they seem to continue to happen naturally. Like all the things, all the goals, allowing the natural order of things just to be there. I'm just rocking back and forth because it's what it feels like. It feels very natural. Natural feels good. Natural feels free. Natural feels obvious. Natural feels like it doesn't feel anxious. It doesn't feel, just feels cool. That's my thought on that. And that's also what allows me to not ever feel the pressure or stress that a client might want to have with me. I feel like it gives me the power to look them in the eye when they're coming at me and have that powerful discourse needed for them to come to new awareness, and for me to also see them in a new way. And it happens in just here, nowhere else. I'm just like, I'm aware of those things, but if I can stay here with you, then we can both get something new, and that just feels good. Everyone likes that. I haven't met any clients that are like, I hate the way I feel, even though I feel better. I feel better. Like it makes me feel weird, and sometimes I feel bad. Like, should I feel better? But it feels better. Okay.
Wow.
Thumbs up. That's great. How can that's amazing. Good for you. I'm proud. I'm grateful to be here with you. It's a beautiful experience for me as well. I get to be in this all the time. Just feels, like I said, feels.
In closing, what do you want the audience to know?
Just how profound this conversation is if you are listening carefully. To listen to this carefully is this could be one of your top episodes, if not the top, if you're listening, because we're in such an incredible space right here, and in this space, all the things that the listeners desire are possible.